Yes, yes, yes. What's up? What is up, MCR family? Another semi-daily edition of the show live on YouTube. Obviously, podcast form, iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, etc. All the podcast forums and distributors. You guys know where to go. Come on. Hit the like button, all the YouTube shit. You guys know what to do. I mean, if you guys watching the show, you've got here already. So you know how to support the show and to share it. I am Matt, the Hipster Hunter. Going to be talking all things boxing today. A lot to get into, actually. Loma Lopez seems to be done, and I was wrong. And I liked how, I think it was the same day, Gary, as our show, where I was like, the fight's not happening this year. It was like, hey, fight's like happening, and it's on regular ESPN, not pay-per-view. So, a lot of crow I have to be on this show. A lot of me going, I was wrong. But also, when it comes to Madrimov, a lot of me being right. I wish Rob was on this show. I wish he was. Cecilia Braekhus, her title reign, her epic title reign ending. She was about to break Joe Louis's title defense record, and she obviously lost her fight against Jessica McCaskill. So ending that reign, ending that title run that was potentially about to be a record holder. Plus, David Benavidez fought, Carl Frampton fought. A lot of people fought this weekend. A lot of stuff to get into on today's show. Without further ado, let me get to my co-hosts, the one and only Gary in Dallas. Gary, how are you, man?
I am good. That was a no-brainer, picking McCaskill. Breezy pick. No, that was a great fight. I thought McCaskill won. Really tough competitive fight. I know there's going to be some debate here on the scorecards, but I don't want to hear it. It's like Prograis and Taylor. I don't want to hear it. It was a great fight. It was super close, and the judge and the scorecards were close. So I don't want to hear anyone complain about the scorecards. But I see a little optimism, Matt. When both fighters want the fight, it'll happen. It'll happen, and we got it right. Like a little bit of optimism.
Hold on. Let me throw in some pessimism. Allegedly, we're getting it.
Allegedly, it's true, right? I'll believe that when they step in the ring, right? But
poster. I'll take a poster, like an official poster. I'll take that.
I have a Shane Mosley versus Zab Judah poster. Well, I don't have it anymore, but I had it in my old apartment. That fight never happened.
Okay, good point. Good point. Good rebuttal. I like it.
There's a lot of them. There's one from Mike Tyson versus Evander Holyfield in 91. That fight didn't happen for 5 more years or something like that. I think it was 90.
Okay. If Top Rank comes out with an official like social media post, like the fight's on this date, I think it's happening. Like unless like somebody gets hurt, obviously, right? Like it's happening. Like there's no, unless some act of God happens, then we're getting the fight.
A global pandemic.
You're right. Good point. All good points here, Gary. Where do you want to get into first? You want to get into fights that happened this weekend? Do you want to get into the news? What are you thinking?
I can go either way. I mean, we start with Loma Lopez every day, it seems, so we can do that, or we can start with the fights because it was a busy weekend. So
let's not start with Loma Lopez. We've started with the show. This
single show. Yeah.
So the fights. I unfortunately did not see most of the Carl Frampton card on ESPN Plus and BT Sport. I saw most of the undercard. Unfortunately, I did not see the main event. So I only saw the Archie Sharp fight and the Michael Collin fight specifically. That those come to mind. The rest I did not see. Unfortunately, Gary, did you watch this card?
I think it was only the 3 cards, the 3 fights that were televised, right? None of them were. Look, Frampton didn't look bad. He just looked like he was taking a tune-up that he wasn't really ultra interested in. Kind of like how Danny Garcia looked against Red Cash. It's like he didn't look bad. It just looked like I don't really want to be here that much. Like this is a trash fight against a C-level opponent. He got him out, so that was good. But like, and he didn't look bad. He really didn't. He just looked like a guy that was uninterested in the tune-up fight. You know, that's what he looked like. And then Archie Sharp is not good, and Mick Conlan's even worse. But Mick Conlan ended up getting the knockout, didn't he? He got the stoppage.
I would say Archie Sharp definitely struggled in his fight. But I like Archie Sharp. I think he's legitimately talented. I think that the frustrations with him putting together a cohesive offensive and defensive sort of game plan and strategy within the fight was just gone. Like it just was not there. And Andre Ward was like really adamant on the telecast, was absolutely frustrated with Archie Sharp. And I kind of agree with him and echo some of his frustrations. Mick Conlan, what do you want to say about him? I'll put it this way. To be a little bit optimistic, Gary, since you started the show with optimism, I'll be a little more optimistic on this show. Michael Collin is not as bad as we make him out to be. He's just not great. You know what I mean? Like he's good. Like he's going to be a guy that's around the top 15-ish, top 20 of the division perennially, I think. You know, whenever he retires, that's when he's no longer in the top 15 or top 20 of any division. I think he could give guys like Angelo Leo, who they've been talking about fighting. I think he could give Leo a lot of troubles in the first 6-7 rounds. It's just the lack of power, the lack of real aggression on his side. And he tried that in this fight, to his credit. You know, he did try to be ultra aggressive in this fight more so than others. He just is not great, and that's fine. He's just a decent guy. He's a decent domestic level guy at this point. And I think that's okay.
Okay. I mean, I guess 15 to 20 is probably a reasonable position for him to be at. The expectations were obviously a lot higher than that.
Yes.
He gets blown out by anyone in the top 7 or 8. I mean, blown out by anyone in the top 7 or 8 at 122. Even Ray Vargas. Did he move up to 26 or is he still 22? Either way, Vargas dismantles him. Like, everyone at 120 in the top 7 or 8 dismantle him. Brandon Figueroa obviously disposes of him. He's just not that good. Like I can see he's a good amateur boxer. He has his dad is the Irish boxing coach, right? Like you can see that he was born and bred in the sport, but he doesn't really have any athleticism. He doesn't have any power. It's just like he's not a pro fighter. He's a good amateur fighter, which he was. It just I don't think it translates at all at the highest level.
No, I think he's good. He's just not great, and that's okay. But he did have a lot of hype coming in to the pros from the amateur scene, so he is overrated in that sense. Similar to how we're going to talk about Majimov obviously later on the show. But Mick Holland's still good. Like he's still a good fighter. Like he's not bad. I've seen plenty of bad fighters in my time. He's not bad.
Manny Rodriguez is going to 122. Manny Rodriguez versus
is he really going to 122?
His next fight's at 122, isn't it?
When was that official?
We talked about it on the show. I said, why would he go to 122?
I don't remember that.
Manny Rodriguez versus
Well, is he supposed to fight Maloney? No, he's supposed to fight Daniel Roman, right? That was supposed to be the fight.
Yes.
You're right. 122. Never mind. I digress.
Manny Rodriguez versus Mick Conlon. Who you got?
I think it's competitive. I think you probably view Rodriguez is going to blow him out.
That's what I'm taking, yeah. I don't know if he blows him out because he's not a bad boxer, but Rodriguez definitely beats him.
I've never been as high on Rodriguez as some other people. I'll put it that way. I think I can see Michael Conlon outbox him and win a decision. I could see that. That doesn't seem out of the question to me.
Paul Butler versus Michael Conlon.
That's disrespectful. Come on, man.
It's not though. That's a fair fight.
Michael Conlon beats Paul Butler.
Probably, but not definitely.
No, he does. Because he didn't lose a single round.
No, he's not good.
No, he just doesn't have that top level power. That's all it is. Like his skills are there, his defense is there, and I would say his aggression's getting better. His ability to apply pressure and apply offense is getting better, but he just doesn't have the power to put guys out. Really, it took him to throw I don't know how many punches in this fight to get Sofane Tukashet or whatever his name is to get out of there in the last round.
I kind of feel it's like when there's a maybe a 6 foot or a 5'11" shooting guard in college basketball who's like a white kid. It's like, okay, he's doing fine at this level. It's like, can he play in the NBA? No, he can't get up and down the court. He sure as hell can't guard me, buddy. No. This is as high as he goes. And he's good at this level, right? But you can't put him in the NBA. He's going to get destroyed on both ends of the court. I kind of feel like that's how it is with Mick Conlon. He's fine at a domestic and maybe even a European level. You put him on the world stage, he's done. If there are any Syracuse Orangemen out there, who was the name of that guy that they had on the team that played with Carmelo Anthony? Jerry McNamara, right? Like that kid. Great college player. Could he ever play in the NBA? Not for 5 seconds.
Tremaine Williams versus Michael Conlon.
Tremaine Williams is good.
Yeah, he is. But you're thinking about the type of guys that would beat Michael Conlon.
Tremaine Williams beats him.
It's not guys that also don't have power and are just boxers like Michael Conlon. It's going to be guys that are the complete package because Michael Conlon isn't the complete package, right? Similar to Tremaine Williams. Tremaine Williams is not the complete package.
But it's still an athletic competition. Who's a better athlete, Tremaine Williams or Michael Conlon?
It's still a skills competition as well.
And Tremaine Williams doesn't have equally as good of skills as Mick Conlon?
I'm not saying he doesn't. I'm just saying your perception that Michael Conlon just gets blown out by even guys like Tremaine Williams is just ludicrous at this point.
He doesn't get knocked out by Tremaine Williams, but he loses almost every round.
I don't think that. Come on, man. Tremaine Williams throws 10 punches. Come on. Tremaine Williams throws 10 punches around.
He's got to pick up the pace a little bit.
He's going to pick up the pace big time. Big time. Like, there's no way he wins a 12-round decision. We're talking about that, right? A 12-round decision.
Yeah.
Mike Conlon can win 7 rounds against some of these guys.
He's not going to land a whole bunch of clean, effective shots. If you're picking him just because of his work rate.
Yes.
Which is possible. Okay. I think that if he got it, it would be a bad decision that you scored his aggression and not his effective aggression. But okay.
All right, moving on. Because it's Michael Conlon. Like, who honestly really cares?
It's enough of Michael Conlon. Yeah.
For 10 minutes now. Who cares? Let's talk about the DAZN card. Actually, let's get the PBC card out of the way because that was kind of like the shittier card of the two, in my opinion. First off, fuck you, Gary, for picking Travis Kaufman over Otto Wallin. You were wrong. Haha. Okay.
Out of the socket, but okay.
Remember how you picked Terry Flanagan against Prograis too? It's just like that all over again. It's the same thing.
He probably would have won had his arm not fallen out of the socket, but okay.
I don't know about that.
Probably not. He didn't look very good. He looked fat and old a little bit.
He did not look good.
He wasn't out of the fight, though. I mean, it was a competitive, horrible competitive fight. And Otto Wallin is just as bad as we thought. He's not better than Travis Kaufman. He might be better than I thought. He's not better than what you thought because you thought he beat Kaufman, and he was in a competitive fight with Kaufman. He sucks.
Well, I thought it was competitive. Hold on. Slow down. Okay, let's frame the discussion here, okay? It's going to be another fucking Michael Conlon discussion. Guys like, let's say, Adam Winocki, Robert Helenius, those types of opposition. You think Otto Wallin just loses those fights? Or is he in that level?
No, he's a notch below that level.
I don't know about that. I think Kaufman's kind of in that level.
He's in the Brian Jennings level.
Man, shots at poor Brian Jennings. What did he do, man?
I think Brian Jennings beats him because at least Jennings is an athlete. Otto Wallin is an offensive lineman who happens to box. He's not good.
Offensive linemen are athletic, man. Okay.
True. Okay, so that was a bad analogy. Those
400-pound dudes are athletes. You don't think about it, but those motherfuckers can move. Their 40-yard dash is insane every time.
You're right. He's I don't even know. They used to have the world's strongest man competition where you'd have like a couple of Samoans and a couple of Nordic guys like throw kegs over walls and put a car on their back. This is a heck of a sport here. What are we doing here? We're throwing kegs over. Are you old enough to remember that?
Yes. Well, that stuff still happens.
Do they still have that?
Yeah. So I'm
like television poker. There was like a season where like everyone was into this, and it's like, what am I really watching here?
Remember when CrossFit became really big? Let's say like 8 years ago, whenever that was, right? Yeah. You saw a lot of strongman competitions going like ESPN2 around that time and shit like that. A lot of them. Same with CrossFit competitions. Like you would end up seeing that shit on. What was the name of the channel? The in Dodgeball, the movie Dodgeball.
Oh, the Ocho.
The Ocho.
ESPN 8, the Ocho.
Yes. That on that channel, yes, you would see strong. You still do, I would say, to some degree.
I've always thought at the end of the Summer Olympics, not the Winter Olympics, because who cares, but the end of the Summer Olympics, everyone who won a gold medal goes into one big dodgeball game at the end. And whoever wins that dodgeball game is the gold medalist.
It would be more entertaining than 90% of Olympic sports, to be being honest.
100% of the Winter Olympics. There's nothing in the Winter Olympics. Speed skating is okay. The figure skating, the ice dancing, the skiing, I mean, these aren't entertaining sports to watch. And again, they're skilled. I understand. Snowboarding. I used to go snowboarding every year. How is that an Olympic sport? I mean, some of these things are just weird. The one with the broom and the hockey puck type thing, the giant hockey puck with the broom. What are we watching here?
Look, the Summer Olympics are like exponentially better than the Winter Olympics, But I grew up with like somebody that loved the Winter Olympics. Actually, like multiple people in my family love the Winter Olympics.
Okay.
So I do have like an affinity, like a personal one to them. I will be honest. So you are right though that from an entertainment standpoint, it's not as good as the Summer Olympics, but it's better than golf.
Yeah. Okay. It's better than golf. That's not
Golf
saying it's good. Golf is the worst. Is golf in the Olympics? It is, right?
is it?
I don't know.
No, it can't be. There's too many fucking tournaments they have. Like, why would you need the Olympics?
I mean, they have the tennis, and there's a million. Every country has their open.
Yeah, but
right?
nobody cares about the tennis Olympics, do they?
I think so.
Do they?
It's
I
not,
never.
it's not as big as the tournament, right? I think it does a solid number. I'm pretty sure. Because tennis is a great sport. It's strength, it's athleticism, it's reflexes. It's just like it doesn't really have a big following, at least in the U.S. So like when it's your country, people will watch. It's kind of like track and field, right? Like people don't really watch track and field like Olympic track meets. College track meets, but in the Olympics they watch it, right? Because it's a really good sport. I think people watch tennis in the Olympics. I think so. And I don't know if there's golf, and I hope no one watches golf in the Olympics, right? Because I think you would know. Like I think you would know that like Tiger Woods is a gold medalist golfer, right? Like you would probably know that.
Yeah, but like that's not like the first 4 or 5 things you talk about with his accolades.
No, that's what I'm saying. If it was like you would say, Michael Jordan won 6 championships and 2 Olympic gold medals, right? Like it wouldn't be the first thing, but you would say it. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I don't even feel it's ever mentioned with Tiger Woods that he won a gold medal. I figure if he was in the Olympics in 96 or 2000 or 2004, he would have won a gold medal. So I don't think they have golf in the Olympics. But somebody can fact check me on that. And if they don't want to because it's golf and nobody cares, that's fine too.
Moving on. PSK is saying that the stream seems to be freezing. I know Heath is saying that the Twitter stream isn't really working. On my end, it looks fine. I'm on the Twitter stream right now. It doesn't seem like it's cutting in and out at all. If YouTube is, then I don't know what that is because I don't have any issues on my end. YouTube says the stream is healthy, and it might just be your end, PSK, if I have to say anything. Same with you, Heath, just to give you guys a heads up, because right now my stream says it is healthy. If Gary's stuttering in and out, because Gary's connection's shit. That's just, because it's Gary's Wi-Fi. Moving on. Let's talk about the obviously contentious and controversial decision between Rolando Romero and Jackson Marinas. I did not score this one because I was kind of too focused on the Madrimov fight at the same time. And I still haven't gone back and watched this one. So I don't have a definitive opinion about how much of a robbery this is because I didn't score it live. And to be honest, when I was kind of watching all the fights at the same time last night, it seemed kind of a ho-hum affair. Like it seemed like a very tepid fight where there wasn't a ton of action. So I don't have a ton of takes on this fight, unfortunately. Gary, did you watch Rolando Romero versus Jackson Marinas?
I did, and I went back and watched it after the DAZN card so that I could watch it attentively, and I scored it.
You're smart.
And I scored it, and there's no way you could have scored that fight for Rolly Romero. There's just no way. And the one that had it 10-2 that's disgraceful. I mean, he's got to go. I forget who that was. But they were all 3 judges. One was Don Trella. Like they were all 3. Glenn Feldman may have been one of them. They were all 3 judges you would know.
It's Glenn Feldman with the 116, 112 scorecard, Frank Lombardi with the 118, 110, and Don Trella with 115, 113.
Atrocious. Absolutely. I scored the close rounds for Rolly Romero, and I had it 116, 112 for Marinas. Mm-hmm. So I just don't understand how, like, when they read up the scorecard, I said, oh, okay, it's about right. And then they gave it to the other guy. I was like, this makes no 10-2. One of the judges scored 10 rounds for Rolly Romero. What fight are you watching? I mean, you can't even find 6 rounds which you can score for him, right? So there's no way he went to score 10. I mean, there's no way he could even get a draw because there's no way you can find 6 rounds that he won. This was atrocious. I mean, I don't want to say it was corruption, but when the Floyd Mayweather fighter gets this kind of decision, I mean, something really stinks there. And like 8-4 and 10-2 for a guy that won maybe 3 or 4 rounds. I mean,
is this exponentially worse than the Triple G Devchenko decision, or just marginally worse? Is it?
It's worse because of 10-2, right? It's worse because of how egregious the scorecards were. I mean, it's so bad. And I usually think Glenn Feldman's one of the guys that does a decent job. That's awful. That's awful. I mean, there's no way you can come up with that scorecard. There's just no way you could. He didn't land anything. He was missing. He was making good noises, but he was missing, and he was getting touched up. I mean, there's just no way you can score those rounds from. Did anyone watching this fight? I'm not judging. I'm just actually curious. Did anyone score that fight for Romero? Or even if you had a draw off of Romero, please let us know. Because I haven't found anyone who had it that way. Not one person.
Everyone in the chat seems to be echoing what you're saying and also saying that the 10-2 scorecard is absolutely terrible and some of the worst things that they've seen.
Worst one I've ever seen since Paul Williams and Laura. Like, it's that bad. I was like, this doesn't even make any sense. We're watching different fights.
There was a lot of bad officiating and judging throughout the weekend. I want to point that out.
This is why you can't have big fights in Oklahoma, right? Because you get the same reason when we did this in Atlanta. It's like either you got
time out. This one was obviously one was in Oklahoma, but this one wasn't. This one was in Beacon Sun, which
well-known judges. Yeah, I mean, there's no excuse for this one at all.
Yeah,
this was
Santiago with the super chat saying it was a robbery, clean and simple, and unanimously so. Benefit of the doubt, and you give Romero 5 rounds. That's still 7 rounds for Marinas. Yeah, it seems like not even like usually like we have like the controversial decisions. You get the I can see the 15-13 scorecard the other way, right? Usually you have that argument. This one I haven't seen that at all. So this one seems kind of black and white a robbery. Like that kind of seems what it is. Again, I have not watched the fight intently enough to give my take on it, but that seems to be what the consensus is. And I don't have anything to go against that consensus. It seems to be the truth. Everyone was outraged. Even on fight night today, like the outrage has not left the community. So hopefully Frank Lombardi especially gets reprimanded, if not just like he's not allowed to judge anymore. Like that just would be amazing, right? Or like a year suspension or like a 3-month suspension, some sort of punishment, right? I don't know what that punishment would be. What was that, Gary?
Call him into the commission, make him explain that, suspend him, make him explain that scorecard, and keep him suspended until he can explain that scorecard. Because there's no explaining something that bad. Like, it's so bad. Like, Canelo Triple G was 10-2. That was a very close fight. Okay, 10-2 is still wrong. This was a one-sided fight the other way, which they had 10 rounds for Romero. It doesn't make, it makes zero sense how you can do this. None. It's not like he missed one round, right? Like, he missed all the rounds. I'm just, when I heard that, I was like besides myself. It's like, that's so wrong. That is so off. I don't like to say things are corrupt, but that's so bad.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to say that's incompetence because if you never watch boxing, you know who won those rounds. You know he didn't win 10 rounds, right? Like, I don't know. That's so bad.
I don't disagree at all, Gary. I definitely wish that we had some sort of like codifying of like rules and regulations when it comes to ref and judging accountability. Like we need some sort of rules on the books, not only from like a per state basis from the ABC. Like we need something from a national perspective. Not only that, I've always thought this, we need a federal commission and set these state commissions that have different rules and different regulations for each state. We need some sort of uniformity when it comes to protections for fighters, because that's what this is. Like Jackson Marina's career is halted because of this decision, right? Like he can't move. Like if Marina's beat Romero, what fights would he be in line for next? What would his career momentum be like?
It was a WBA elimination fight, wasn't it?
No, I know that. I'm saying more rhetorically speaking.
Okay.
I'm not actually. Yeah, we all know that. Like we all know that these sorts of moves by judges or refs hurt fighters' careers. So we need to protect fighters. So that's always my mindset, that we need to view this as a fighter protection issue. So we need to make sure that refs and judges are accountable.
If he won a unanimous decision like he deserved to, right? He gets a fight in the top 10. He's not signed by anyone, right? He's not. I'm not aware that he's signed by any major promoter. So if he gets the decision, he is, because he's in line for a big money fight, right? So he has a promoter, someone who has his interest and can get him those fights. And he probably gets a fight with a top 10, 168. I don't know who that is. I mean, we can go through the names, but he probably gets a fight with a top 168 pounder.
Lightweight.
I mean, what am I saying? 168 pounder? Lightweight, right. I mean, again, I don't know who that is, but
no, he goes from either being most likely being on a major network with a major promoter in a major fight to now back to the regional scene, off TV.
I was thinking about Benavidez when I said 168. I don't know why.
Okay. It's the card. I understand.
Yeah. Against a premier lightweight, a top 10 lightweight. Now he has. Look, he's probably not going to go backwards. He's just going to stay neutral. They'll probably get a rematch out of this because it was that bad. Unless Floyd Mayweather and Mayweather Promotions are just so against it. But everyone saw what happened, and it's like you can't get Romero a bigger fight until he solves this puzzle, right? Because no one takes him seriously at this point. I mean, I guess you can, but anyone who watches the fight thinks he sucks now because of what just happened, right? And it's not Romero's fault. He got a horrible decision, right? But like he does kind of live with that. Like, everyone thinks you suck now because you got a decision. If he would have just lost, I felt like it would be less bad because you just go back, get some more wins, and we'll see a year from now if they pick up a few more wins. But like now, it's like he's got that scarlet letter of you got this decision where you lost every round. I feel like that's almost worse in a way that he got the decision.
Yeah, but then again, it's
a win.
No, it's a win, but not only that, I mean, he's like Rolly Romero. Like, how fast are people going to forget him? Like, us hardcore won't to a degree, but casuals, probably just didn't see this fight. Two are going to forget it in a week.
Yeah, no, you're right. That's true. I mean, we'll hang on to it, but the rest of the majority of the boxing world won't. So,
if this was, let's say, the main event and it was for a title, it'd be a different discussion because the amount of focus on it would be more. It's an undercard fight for guys that are prospects. I could see just both guys moving on. Not that should happen. I agree that it should be a rematch, and maybe the promotion should make it, but they don't have to. And there's definitely not any public pressure to make it from my vantage point, at least. Moving on to the main event, David Benavidez versus Romero Angulo. I mean, what to say about this fight? David Benavidez, he was pretty much dominant in this fight. I mean, clearly there was a huge power and technical divide between the two. And it was just, to me, it was interesting seeing, especially in the first few rounds, and maybe juxtaposing it with Angulo versus Anthony Sims Jr., right? The difference of levels, right? Like just how simple it is to say that, but you have to sort of see it, right? Angulo kind of just dominated and outworked Anthony Sims Jr., who was a highly touted prospect, right? Comes in here against David Benavidez, and Benavidez kind of just slapped him around.
He did.
Did what he wanted. Like anytime like Romero had offensive engagement momentum, Benavidez just ate that and then just pressed forward and shoot him up. Like it was just, again, levels. Like that was this fight. I do have issues with Benavidez's lack of defense or lackadaisical defense. I don't know how to really describe it because I think he does have decent defense. It's just when he doesn't care, he doesn't try. Like he doesn't try to slip shots and try to really block shots. He'll just eat it. And I think he does have a tendency to do that even with top-level guys. So when we talk about him fighting top-level guys that aren't Angulo, obviously, that are actually top-level guys, he can't do that. He has to be more dialed in. And when he's dialed in, like we saw in huge parts of this fight, he is absolutely devastating and maybe the heaviest hitter in the division because he was, again, slapping Angulo around. Like, it was nothing. That was really surprising to see. Just, again, the levels of difference between a Benavidez Angulo fight or an Angulo Sims fight. You know, it's, again, one's a champion, one's a prospect, and Angulo was the gatekeeper in between. Gary, your thoughts on this main event?
Look, I am saddened by Benavidez twice losing his belt and neither time in the ring, right? Like, this is sad at this point. Look, I spoke to Virgil Ortiz today, and he said it's really difficult making weight. He said he had trouble making 147. He doesn't have trouble making 47 in the bubble, right? He's like, it's just different, right? Like, you eat differently. And it's harder to sweat those last couple of pounds off, right? It really is. He couldn't really explain why, but he said he understands why. Like a lot of these other fighters, like Shakur Stevenson, fought at 130, right? It's like it's tough to make just to get rid of those last extra couple of pounds. So I'm going to give Benavidez the benefit of the doubt, but very skeptically, right? Like, did he look drained to you? You know what I'm saying?
No, I didn't.
You're fat. You know.
I didn't think that at all. I agree that obviously with the sentiment of in this time period of the bubbles and everything like that, people maybe not having the best cardio, maybe missing weight. I kind of excuse that to a degree because a lot of these fights are getting made on short notice. A lot of these fighters don't have a full training camp that they're used to. Their diet's different. So I'm kind of excusing a lot of those issues, to be honest.
Yeah, they were saying like you can when you spend off the last couple of pounds, it's kind of like an all day thing. Like you go jog, you know, in the sweatsuit. And he said that you're back in your hotel where it's air conditioned, right? And then you're trying, you know, instead of going to the gym in the summer or turning the heat up to 85 degrees, and you're in your air conditioned room where then you have to turn the air conditioner off. You know, I get it. It seems more difficult to make weight in the bubble. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to give Benavidez the benefit of the doubt. But he also gave away his belt the first time because of cocaine and hookers, right? That's what he told Mauricio Solomon.
Legend shit right there.
Okay. I mean, look, I was that. I think he was 20 when that happened. I get it.
21, maybe.
Yeah, maybe 21. He won the belt when he was 19. I get it. I was young. I did stupid things that I'm not going to talk about on air. I get it, right? But you have a lot. He had a lot to lose, right? And then he lost it he lost it with cocaine and hookers, and then he lost it with being fat and beer and pizza or something. I don't know.
That's harsh. That's harsh.
Okay.
Because first off, Benavidez has never had like a Greek Adonis like
yeah.
Dude came from heavyweight. Okay, so like he doesn't have that sort of flabby skin to a degree because he was such a big guy back in the day, in my opinion. And again, like I wouldn't say like we saw issues with his cardio in this fight per se. It just kind of came in there for it to tune up, and that's what it looked like to a degree. And there was even in his sort of lackadaisical performance, you could see the levels between the two. And in terms of the cocaine issue, I have no issue with any fighter taking recreational drugs as long as it does not affect their performance in the ring. Same with drinking, like that's a drug, right? Same with any sort of recreational drug. Like if you do that in your off time, but you get in the gym and you train and you are able to perform, I largely don't care. If it's an issue for you, right? Not to you, Gary, but to like the individual fighter, right? Like for Spence, right? He's come out and said, hey, I was drinking too much. Then you should probably fix that. But if your performance in the ring is fine, then I don't have any right to say you should fix that, right? Like other than him popping for cocaine, when in my opinion he should have been tested for cocaine, period, and losing his belt isn't a sign of him being undisciplined, isn't a sign of him not taking fights seriously, isn't a sign of him not being a good fighter. Like those aren't signs yet. You know, when we see like a guy like, let's say, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., a long history of drug use, recreational drug use too, but that affected his in-ring performance, right? Like that affected him. So that's when, from an outside perspective, I can go, hey, maybe you should clean yourself up a little bit to help yourself because it's clearly affecting you. We can see it from the outside. If it's not affecting you from the outside, then it's hard for me to go, you should clean up that recreational drug issue or recreational drug use because it's not really an issue yet. Same with marijuana, same with cocaine, same with alcohol. That's sort of my take.
I agree with that. Like, I don't have a problem with it. If that's what you want to do personally, that's your prerogative. You can do whatever you want. His team, his trainer, and things like that, the people who work with him, who are involved with him, may have a problem with it, right? And it's ultimately like those are the people who have to advise him, right? Like when I was a stockbroker, we had a lot of people who did a lot of things, right? And if you came to work every day and produced, like no one really cared. Mm-hmm. If you stop coming to work on time every day, even if your numbers were good, they start to talk to you, right? Because we know where this goes, right? But like those are things that like should be handled internally. Like his dad is involved, his trainers. Like if they start to know, it's like, look, you're partying a little bit too much. We need to reel this in. That should be handled internally, right? Like Look, you do whatever you want. I'm just saying, like, this usually doesn't end well, but that's up to y'all. Y'all are adults. You make your own decisions.
Well, I mean, there's plenty of people that have used cocaine that have not like spiraled down to the gutter.
Sure, absolutely. But I'm saying if it becomes an everyday habit where now you're coming into the
But
gym,
no one is saying that.
no, I agree.
Like Benavidez didn't come out and say, "Yeah, I had an issue." Like, no, he just like I got suspended, I got popped. Moving on.
It has to be the truth, right? Because there's no way he'd make that up to tell Mauricio that, right? Like that has to. Oh, look, it was the first time I did it. I was with hookers in Mexico. It's like, why would? And that's got to be the truth, right? Like, it's be better than that.
Gary, if you were 20 years old, a world champion of boxing, we're in Mexico with millions of dollars, cocaine and hookers, you'd be doing the cocaine and the hookers at the same time. Everyone would be. Like, that's just like, not everyone, but most people would be in that situation.
I was 20. I was 21. I was not doing stupid things.
I cannot confirm nor deny what I have done in my life. But, you know, like, I get it. Like, I totally get it. And I have plenty of friends that, let's say, are in high end, let's say, the financial industry or the insurance industry, right? And they all use to some degree of something, right? To some spectrum of usage. And most of them get along just fine. It doesn't affect their lives. So, like, again, for the people that it does affect their lives, it does affect their work, it does affect their personality. Fix that, both internally as a person and for the people around you. But if it's not, I don't care. I simply do not care. Not one of my issues. Dan Benavidez next, though. Are we thinking it's Caleb Plant? Are we thinking that he has to fight for his vacant title now, like back? Like, what are we thinking that happens here?
If I'm the WBC, which I'm not, I'd be done with him. This is the second time. I'm done. You can't fight for my belt anymore. Not at 75, you're more than welcome to. Not at 68. But yeah, probably he'll fight for his vacant belt again because I still view him as a draw. I know. I mean, I guess these numbers aren't going to be great either. I just saw this 19-year-old with great power, and, good skill burst onto the scene. And I said, okay, this kid's going to be a star. Now he's done nothing at all to prove me correct, but I still see star power in him, which means big purses, which means big sanctioning fees. So I think the WBC will let him fight for his belt again.
And to be fair, Gary, I mean, the guy is what, 23 now?
23.
You have plenty of time to be right.
Yeah, no, I know, but he's done nothing. Yeah, I'm sure these ratings are not going to be good. Would you agree with that when these ratings come in?
Well, yeah, but like this is like what I talk about with like the top rank events. Like you have one good fighter on the card and a bunch of no-name prospects fighting like that. It's not going to get good ratings that way. Like, you're never going to do that. Plus, there wasn't any marketing behind it, so of course there's not going to be any good ratings. So, yeah, the ratings for this aren't going to be good. But it's kind of self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, you made a bad event on paper, you didn't promote it, didn't market it, so of course it gets bad ratings. Right?
The PBC cards do get better from here, though. The Showtime cards do get better from here.
Absolutely. And I when the Showtime schedule came out, I said, these are the cards, these first two cards, and then maybe the Chris Colbert card people have an issue with and are going to do well.
I didn't think it was a bad card. I mean, it's not going to be a ratings bonanza, but it's not bad fights.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. Like, they're not going to be big ratings draws. They're not going to be big events. They're just short fight nights. And this was that, even though I had David Benavidez, who's a legit champion, world level guy, but he's fighting Romero and Angulo. Like, no one cares about that matchup. And the prospects on this undercard, and Rolly Romero and Jackson Marinas, are like hardcore darlings. Like, they're not even people that, like, the greater boxing community kind of knows about.
I didn't even know who Jackson. I was calling him Martinez. I didn't realize there was no T in it until the fight started. I didn't know who that was until the fight. And hopefully, I do now. And he was pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
He won 10 rounds.
I wish I saw the Carlos Negron fight versus Jonathan Rice. I wanted to see that one. Alontes Fox was on this card too.
Yeah.
There's some good little undercard fights that we didn't see. But anyways, moving on. Let's talk about the DAZN card. Cecilia Braekhus, again, as I said at the top of the show, her title reign is over. She's about to beat the Joe Louis title defense consecutive record of 25 title defenses. She's about to beat it last night. She didn't. She lost to Jessica McCaskill in a great little fight. And not a fight of the year contender like Harper and Jonas was, in my opinion. Like, that was a bloody fucking slugfest, in my opinion. Braekhus McCaskill was just a really, really top-notch fight with a lot of good boxing, a lot of good sort of one-upmanship within the fights. I liked the way McCaskill was able to sort of dominate the clinching and the inside. I thought was phenomenal, because that's usually where Braekhus does excel in, sort of like Klitschko. She excels at range with her jab, her 1-2, but she does excel on the inside and controlling people. And McCaskill was not, she did not allow herself to be controlled in any way. And clearly just outworked Braekhus, clearly made her uncomfortable in every single sort of second of the fight. I thought this was a fantastic performance from McCaskill. Fantastic sort of swan song from Braekhus in a way, because I think from all signs she's done, right? She's retiring. Thought, again, really top-notch fight. I don't know if it's a fight of the year contender, but a really good, memorable fight. And McCaskill's, ability to outwork a pound-for-pound talent like Braekhus, outwork a legend and Hall of Famer like Braekhus was incredible to see.
It was. And I picked McCaskill because everyone's got to lose at some point. And she was already talking about retirement. So as soon as you're talking about retirement, you already got one foot in that door. And it's hard to beat a fighter like Jennifer McCaskill that way. Now, when they came in, there was an even bigger size difference than I expected. And look, I could see if you scored the fight for Braekhus, right? Mm-hmm. She's the better pure boxer, and she established that a lot of times throughout the fight. But I mean, the dog and the ruggedness in McCaskill.
You would have to discount all of McCaskill's work on the inside to do that.
Right. So, yeah. But she was Mamba mentality. She was not going to be denied. I'm glad the decision went her way. I thought she won. I knew it was going to be close. I knew it was going to be controversial. Whoever won when they went to the scorecards, right? But I do think 5 years ago, Braekhus beats her, but it's not 5 years ago anymore. I think that she still has plenty left in the tank, and she's still, a top 10 pound for pound women's fighter. But
she could still beat a Katie Taylor, for example.
She fought at the wrong time,
For example.
What was that?
She could still beat a Katie Taylor, for example.
Well, I mean, she's way bigger.
Yeah, that's the size. Yeah. She could still make some big money fights if she wanted to.
Yeah, but I mean, she's done. I mean, she fought, and this is like the first time we saw her in the U.S. on a Mikkel Kessler Showtime card. I guess in Denmark. I don't remember, but it was in Europe. When was this? 2009? I mean, this was so long ago, and she was a world champ then. She fought another undefeated fighter on a Mikkel Kessler card, right? It was I think 2 or 3 fights that were shown. That was one of them. And like, she was undefeated. I think that might have been for a unification fight or an undisputed fight, and she's had all the belts since then. I mean, this is an incredible run with her, and like, I knew it. Like, it was like Floyd. If Floyd kept fighting, he would eventually lose. If he fought top guys, she fought a top fighter and she lost. But it was a great fight. It's a great way to end your career. And then there's a passing of the guard. Like, I think McCaskill is going to beat Taylor. I think she's going to be a tough out for anyone at 135, 140, and even 147, where she's going to be undersized, but she's still that good.
No, I pretty much agree with everything you said. There's nothing I really disagree with. Gary, can you briefly refresh your page, please? That'll make everything. I think there's an echo on your side, and I think this refresh might help. It's been bothering me. That's Gary jumping back. I see a lot of debate in the chat between like a Johnny, Team Batman Boxing, and some other people like Hassan. I think PSK got into a little bit on to Telly. I want to sort of dive into your guys' debate. I think you guys are approaching it in the wrong way, and I think some of you have sort of alluded to how you guys should better approach this argument. But I'll get to that hopefully after this card. Just somebody please remind me when we get done with this card. Please, someone remind me to come back into this whole unifications, which promotional company does them better or shit like that. I want to step into that discussion you guys are having in the chat. Gary's back. Gary, back to Braekhus McCaskill. As a fan, what would you want to see for Braekhus next? Do you want her to stay retired or be retired, as I think it is what she's saying? Or would you want her to come back for a couple more super fights with, Crystal Shields, who offered her $1 million for that fight, but obviously she turned it down. Or Katie Taylor, versus Defon Pursoon, the winner of that fight. Is that a big enough fight for Braekhus? A rematch with McCaskill? Is there enough money in that to draw it back, or is there enough interest in your side as a fan to want to see that? As a fan of Braekhus, what would you want to see?
I mean, there's enough interest.
That's right.
And there's enough interest. I would like to see the fights, but if she would have won the fight, like we would have kind of demanded the Shields fight. She lost though. So I mean, if Shields beat her, so what? Shields didn't beat the undisputed. I mean, it's still a good win for Shields. Don't get me wrong, but it's like she didn't dethrone Braekhus. So yes, I would still have interest in fighting in seeing her fight again. If I was advising her, I'd say, look, if you're financially set, don't do it at this anymore. You're 38. You're probably had the best career ever of any women's fighter. Enjoy your retirement.
And she was kind of that in-between generation, right? Like there's a lot of women that kind of fall in that, where they were obviously way too late from the Christy Martin run, the Layla Ali run, right? Like they're way after that era. But they were the sort of cross-generational gap between that old generation of the 90s to the Olympic generation we have now, right? The post, women being in the Olympics for boxing. And Braekhus was that crossover generational transcendental talent. She was. She, without a doubt, a Hall of Famer, without a doubt, an all-time great. Like there's no doubt about it. She's in that sort of Mount Rushmore of women's boxing right now. It's just, I'm insanely curious now to see what she does in terms of leveraging that sort of status as an ambassador to women's boxing as sort of a retired fighter now. Does she go into promotion, coaching? What does she do? I'm always curious about that with legends of that caliber. But also, she and people like Holly Holm, they all in a weird way birthed this new generation. I'm insanely curious to see what this next generation does, because this generation that we're sort of seeing right now, the contemporaries of Shields and Taylor and etc. This is a great generation. This is a ever growing and ever developing generation as well. Just really good time for women's boxing, to be honest. And even though this is in a weird way, one of the legends losing, it is still a great sign of women's boxing, because it shows that this next generation is coming into their own. Because Jessica McCaskill does represent that next generation. Not as much as Shields or Taylor, but she does represent that next generation. Any other thoughts, though? Or Gary?
I was also shocked that McCaskill is 35. She looks like she's 19, doesn't she?
Yeah, but there's a lot of women in women's boxing that were obviously in the Olympics, were in the amateur scene.
Sure, yeah.
Into the pros very, very late. I think that era is done. Like the women that are, in their 30s, jumping from the amateurs to the pros, hopefully is done. But then again, payment in the amateurs is different for men and women, both in the UK and in the US. Until that is really changed, I don't know if this issue is obviously addressed and dealt with. But hopefully we see more women enter the pros at a younger age, because that will, I think, allow them to have a greater career, obviously speaking. Let's talk about the co-main event. And I wish Rob was here, because I want to make fun of him so much. Israel Madrimov defeating Eric Walker via unanimous decision. There's a lot to dissect with this fight from just a pure entertainment perspective, from an X and O's perspective, from what is Madrimov at this point. There's a lot to address, plus the whole knockout, that whole controversy in the 9th round, I think it was, right? So, Gary, what aspect of this fight do you want to tackle first? You want to tackle just the X and O's of it? Do you want to tackle how Madrimov is gross overrated? And me and you are right. You want to tackle the whole 9th round controversy? What do you want to do?
Let's get to that last, right? Because let's talk about the fight, because I think we're going to agree on that. I don't know. I don't know where we're going to stay. Madrimov is a big puncher. With he's kind of it's kind of like some Nassim Hamed in it, but it's not there yet, right? Maybe he's only 25. He's had 7 fights now, 6 fights now. I mean, he's just not ready yet. Me and Matt were saying that he was getting hit a lot. He was missing wild. He's not that good yet. I get what people like about him. He's just not there yet. He's not. Give me one guy in the top 15 at 154 who you think he beats. I'm not even convinced he beats Ted Cheeseman at this point, because he eats too many shots.
Rob is somewhere like super conflicted right now. Like, oh my god,
like last time, thinking that Madrimov probably beats him. I don't know. Like, he's not good. Like, he's not polished yet. That's what I'm saying, right? Like, yes, there are things you like about Madrimov, right? But he's so far from a championship level fighter. I don't know if he ever gets there. It's certainly not anytime soon.
Before I get into my like real critical thoughts about the Madrimov hype, and not really Madrimov per se, it's more of the Madrimov hype that I have an issue with, right? I thought this fight was great. This to me was like the best fight of the weekend, probably. It was entertaining. It was sloppy fun at times. There was super technical moments. There was obviously major dramatic moments within the fight, guys, right? Like it almost checked off every box you wanted in a boxing fight, right? Like you had a knockout, even though it went to decision technically, right? Like you had everything in this fight that you wanted. But I'll say this. Madrimov's hype was that of he is the uncrowned king of the junior middleweight division. That was the hype, that he was the guy. He was the best guy in the division. Even though he was at 4 fights, he was the best guy in the division. Didn't matter that he didn't fight anyone within the top 20. He was the best guy in the division. That was the hype. Clearly, that hype is grossly overrated and overhyped. There's just no way to debate that at this point in time when he's struggling, went life and death with what's his name? Eric Walker, right? Was his name?
And Eric Walker's a guy who got soundly beaten by Patrick Day, God rest his soul, and got beaten by what's his name in the contender, Cannon Adams. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, look, well, I'm not saying Walker's a bum. He's not a bum, but I'm saying, like, look at the caliber fighter he is, and he was giving Madrimov trouble. There's no question about that. Even Rob would have to say, yes, he was getting touched up.
And touched up a lot.
A lot.
Like, a lot. That Prince Nassim defense that people want to claim that he's like, that didn't work at all. He got jabbed the fuck up. He is lucky that his power is so incredible, to be honest. He is lucky that because he is such a natural, brutal body puncher, he can wear out guys faster than those guys can outbox him. You know what I mean? Like, he can wear them down by rounds 4, 5, 6, 7 before they can, rack up enough rounds to where they win the decision. But like again, the idea that he comes in there and beats anyone within the top 10 or 15 is just not logical. To say that he is the uncrowned king of this division is not logical. It's just asinine. It's ridiculous. And I still see like the Madrimov fanboys out there saying that he is still the uncrowned king of the division. Like, they're not taking their L. They're out there still on social media, on Twitter, saying, no, he is still the best 154-pounder. I just
154 is such a good division with so many great fighters. Like, wrong division. Like, he's not the best in that division.
I'm gonna go through BoxRec's top 15 here. Okay, Jamel Charlo, Elislandy Laura, Kell Brook. Kell Brook got 3, by the way. Oh, BoxRec, love you. Brian Castano, Michael Soro, Jeff Horn, Jason Rosario, Julian Williams, Jared Hurd, Erickson Lubin, Jack Kelkay, Patrick Teixeira, Carlos Adames, Sergio Garcia, and Tony Harrison.
Harrison at 15? All right. I mean, maybe a little higher than that. He beat Carlo.
Dude, they have Kell Brook and Jeff Horn within the top 6, okay? Like, what do you want me to do here, okay? Madrimov does not beat any of those guys except for maybe Kell Brook and Jeff Horn, who I don't really count in my top 15, to be honest. Like, I'll put like Gachet or even like Tim Zhu more in my top 15.
Well, Conwell beats him too. Conwell's 54, right?
Yes, he is.
He beats him. Conwell's way better than him at this point.
He is. Backroom that guy, one of the Eastern Europeans, I'm not going to pronounce his name right this time. Yeah, he's even arguably better. Like, Madrimov is a really good prospect in the way that he's obviously talented. He obviously has a lot of tools that he can apply. He's a good athlete, great cardio, good power, like great power. Like, he clearly is a very talented fighter. If you're a fanboy of his, let him work his way up. Okay, let him earn the status of the king of the junior middleweight division because he hasn't done anything yet. And it's the same with Lubin when he got moved up too fast.
Lubin beats him.
Lubin does now, but Lubin had to prove that he was actually a top level guy. He did that after he lost because he didn't prove on the way up. I feel like there's so many boxing fans that just did not take that lesson to heart. That, you don't need to throw these undefeated prospects in there with top level talent for no reason, especially when they're untested. There's no reason to do that. Work them up. There's a ranking for a reason. There's a top 10, top 15 for a reason. And I know that people might say that, oh, he's number 2 in the WBA. If you're his management or his promotional company, you should be tried in court for malpractice because you are putting your fighter up for failure. You are setting him up to fail because he's not ready for that ranking. Okay? It's just clear as day. And again, all the criticisms of the hype of Madrimov does not mean that I think Madrimov is a bum because he's not. He's clearly a good fighter. He's clearly a top 30-ish guy in the division already. Right? He's clearly already almost on the world level to that degree, but he's not a championship level guy. He's not a top 10 level guy yet. Let these guys work their way up. Boxing fans need to understand that. And for some reason, they just don't want to learn their lesson. PSK saying, kind of reminds me of Benavidez when he first came through. Can see potential, but there's underlying flaws. We'll see which way Madrimov goes. I mean, Benavidez, I don't know for a fact by his 8th fight he was fighting better competition, but by his 10th or 11th fight he was fighting world level guys, top 15 guys. So we could tell, right? The Callum Johnsons of the world aren't the Vajdiks of the world, but it's a way up. It's working your way up. That's all we can ask for. Moving on, unless Gary, you have any other thoughts about Madrimov?
No, that's nothing. Oh, we want to get to the 9th round? You want to get into that?
Oh, yeah, how about that? I see a lot of debate about this, actually. I feel like it's pretty obvious what this should be or what this either-or issue should be. Either this should have just been ruled a knockout because I don't think the push really pushed him down. I think he was legit knocked out from that left hook and he went down like timber. That's just what it was. Or you ruled it a push or an illegal foul, accidental foul or whatever, and somebody should have stopped the fight and just ruled it and ended it and gone to the scorecards. That's how it should have gone. The fact that Eric Walker went out there for another 3 or 4 rounds and got hit after being knocked out is just really gross and really upsetting. For the year that we had last year in terms of how many people unfortunately passed away in this sport, tragically, it to me just seemed like gross miscompetence, gross malpractice by the commission, by the corners. Everyone involved in this situation is at fault, to be honest. This fight should have been stopped at that point. How it was ruled in terms of KO, you go to the scorecards, I think ultimately does not matter. That fight should have ended right then and there. End of story.
It's letting that go on was so egregious, right? Because he was knocked out. So it's how can that be from a push, right? If I push you, do you get knocked out like that, right? Not unless I run at you 100 miles an hour, right? But so it's obviously to knock it. If whatever you ruled it, right? The fight can't go on at that point, right? He's in no position to fight. It would get Manny Pacquiao up after Marquez knocked him out, give him 5 minutes, let him fight again. It's are you kidding me? No, this fight's over. It's over. It's done with. I don't even know who to blame though. Do you blame the corner? The corner should have stopped it. The ref should have stopped it. The doctors definitely should have stopped it. There's so many, and this is why you can't do fights like this in Oklahoma, right? Because when you have these major cards, and we're gonna call this a major card for the sake of this conversation. Yeah, you have to have a reasonable commission that knows what they're doing, right? There's no that call by the ref. Let's just call it I was saying there was corruption in the scorecards and the other card. This wasn't corruption. He was just that bad, right? He doesn't know what he's doing. So he's just that bad where he missed the knockout, which is mind-blowing because no one watching it missed it, right? That's like someone's got to stop. When you see the guy can't get up, he can't answer he can't answer to you. This fight's over. No more.
You know, and it was one of those things like on replay you could tell what happened. No, like live, and we had the angle from the ref. It's not like we had a different angle from the ref. The camera was behind the ref when it was the live feed, right? So you could see his angle where you were just looking at Masvidal's back, right? So you couldn't see the push per se, but you could see the left hook.
The first thing they said was, "That's a knockdown. That's a knockdown." You know, it's like we all thought it was knockdown.
Everyone was yelling. I was yelling in my studio. He's knocked out. He's knocked out. Holy shit! The ref's not calling a knockout. They're letting this go on, and you could see Walker. I mean, again, wake up, come to, and try to like get his faculties straight. And the ref's just yelling at him, "You have 5 minutes. You have 5 minutes." The incompetence is just so much.
It was like when Rigondeaux fought Chucky Flores and he hit him right at the bell, right? Now, if it's an accidental shot, it's a no contest because it was the end of the first round, or it's a knockout. We're not going to continue this fight. This fight's over, right? So let's figure out if it was at the bell or after the bell, and then we can make a decision from there. But it's not like, okay, he's clean out cold. Let's let him get up and have him fight some more. No, the fight's over. Now we just need to decide what we're doing with this. It was like that, and then they just let it go on. It's like,
and they could have stopped it in round 10, 11, 12, too. Like every round you could have stopped it, and no one stopped it. They just let Walker take a fucking beating. And dude, I am so happy that when I woke up, looked at Twitter this morning, I saw from Lou DiBella that Eric Walker, was fine in the hospital. Because I was legit worried about him. Like nothing about his body language looked right. Even before the knockout. Like you can tell like he was hurt, he was concussed. And then to get actually full on knocked out unconscious and then to be thrown back into the fight, it's just insane. I remember one time I was very little. Like I was probably like 10 years old watching a fight with my parents. And it was a UFC fight. I forget who it was. And somebody got knocked out, right? And my mom, not being a big sports fan, right, was like, so what happens? And I joked, oh, they just pick him back up and they keep going. It happened. They do that apparently now in Oklahoma. Again, bad on every single facet in terms of just malpractice, incompetence. It's just really frustrating and dangerous. Shakram Giazov defeating Winston Campos. I thought Giazov looked good. He's one of those guys where like I don't think he's going to be a world champion, but he's a fun guy, fun undercard guy. Raymond Ford fighting Eric Manriquez. Again, looked fine. I wasn't too impressed or shocked by anything.
Manriquez gave Otha Jones life and death. He also fought one of the Alejandro brothers. Tough. So this guy has been used against a lot of unbeaten prospects, and he's fought him tough. He did not fight Raymond Ford. I mean, he fought it as hard as he could, but Raymond Ford won every single round by a mile. So I think Raymond Ford is a prospect. I'm not saying he's going to be a world champion. I'm saying that's a prospect you may want to keep your eye on. That guy's pretty good. His skills are real sharp.
I don't see world championship caliber, but I see like a top 15 guy.
I have no idea. He's got skills. How far those skills will get him? He has no power, right? That or at least it looks that way. But he's got what 5 fights, so maybe he can get in with a coach who can sit him down on his punches and But I'm just saying that's a prospect. I'm not saying I don't know what his upside is. That's a prospect you might want to keep an eye
on. Nikita Bobby actually looked like improved. I know you said that on the previous show that he's been improving. I was like, LOL, good one to Gary. But then it was like, oh shit, he looks a little bit better in this fight. I mean, again, I don't think he's going to be a world champion or anything like that, but he did look a lot better. Like he looked like he's putting his punches more fluidly. Like there wasn't like this awkward, like herky jerky movement to his punches like it was in his first few fights. I think he's getting a little more of a mean streak, which I like in prospects. If you're fighting a guy that's clearly not your level, be the mean guy, be the aggressor, like show that your level's above him. And he kind of did that as much as he could. Again, not world beater. I don't think he's going to be a world champion, but he looked improved. I'll give him some props for that.
He looked okay. Again, we were talking about Dalton Smith the other day, where guys like I don't think he's got championship caliber, but he's going to be in a lot of fun fights. That's Nikita Bobby. Nikita Bobby is going to be in a lot of fun fights. He's got a lot of power. Raymond Guajardo dog walks him. I would keep Nikita Bobby away from Clay Collard for the time being.
Yeah, I'm about to say, like, yo, Clay Collard whooped his ass, man. Like, you think Bobby's going to get whooped?
Guajardo dropped him and almost stopped him, too, by the way. Like, that did happen also in the first round. That did happen.
And
that dropped, he got up and dropped Collard and almost stopped him. But he was never the same after that knockdown. But Frank Guajardo beats Nikita Bobby.
No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't, Gary.
Nikita Bobby falls underneath that Texas heat for sure.
I'll give you some credit. Tanahara beat Rolly Romero for sure.
Okay, good. Does he beat Jackson Martinez without a T? How are we saying that? Marinez?
Yeah, that's how I'm saying it.
Okay, I'll say it that way too.
You know me, I never have the audio on for these telecasts because I don't like listening to these commentators and shit. So like if I don't know your name heading into the fight, I rarely know it after the fight. I'm not listening to the telecast. What am I going to do? Like Todd Grisham and Sergio Mora on the DAZN telecast? Fuck that. I'm good.
Sergio, I like Sergio. Like Sergio's the guy. Like if he was in your group of friends, he's the fun guy, right? Like I like Sergio. Grisham's awful. Can we get anyone else? He comes from ESPN too, right? Grisham. He's awful. It's terrible. He's not funny. He's not witty. He's not good at calling the punch by punch. Like I would like to strangle Jim Lampley, but Jim Lampley is so good at calling the punch by punch, right? Like, but his personality drives me insane. Grisham's got the personality that drives you insane. He's not funny, and he's not good at his job. So it's like,
shout out to Todd Grisham, man. Keep doing the work, man.
Get that job though, right? Like who hired him? Twice, ESPN, and then DAZN. Like who thought he was good? Like I'm missing Brian Kenny on these telecasts.
Yeah, you know what? I always get Brian Kenny a lot of shit. He was actually pretty decent on that last Fox telecast. I'll be honest. Goosen's the best out of all the new people. Like, and it's not even like close. He is light years better than all these new commentators in the sport. Moving on, let's get to news of the day, Gary. Let's get to this Lomachenko and Teofimo Lopez news by way of The Athletic and Mike Coppinger. It looks like it's happening. They're finalizing the deal, and it's not on pay-per-view. It's on ESPN. Gary, your thoughts? Also, I think it was about like what, a 20% raise in Lopez's purse is what I think he won out for.
Right, which is I still think they lowball him, but that shows me he wants the fight, right? Because it was 1.25, 20% of that would be another 250, so they're giving him right around $1.5 million, a little under. Okay, I still think they're lowballing you, but okay. I mean, this shows me you want the fight, so I'm glad they've reached that. Teofimo was right. It just takes negotiation. It just takes some time. And this is his words, dumbasses.
I was the dumbass, apparently. The funny part, right? Like, fuck. Damn it. I was so sure this fight wasn't going to happen. I was so sure about it.
I mean, 20% is still a lot. But, like, I thought when 1.25 is so off, right? You know, Devin Haney got $1 million to fight his Uber driver. I'm fighting Lomachenko. You're going to give me a lot more than an extra $200,000. You know what I'm saying? Like, but, you know, he did it for right at 1.4, 1.5. So, okay, good. I mean, I don't care what he makes. As long as he makes enough to sign the contract, I'm happy, right? I just think he's lowballing, but that shows me he does really want the fight. Agreed.
Like, the funny part is, like, yes, it's a 20% increase, but that 20% increase is still, I'm again, not a math major, but I mean, you should get paid $2 to $2.5 million, I guess, for this fight. If I'm betting money, if I'm in this camp, I'm telling him that's what he should be. That's what he's worth in this sort of matchup. He's getting about $1 million less now, or $500,000 at least less than that. So he's still not making as much as he should, but it's a nice little increase. So at least he can argue that, hey, I did get what I want. I got a 20% increase. If it's Top Rank, they say, hey, we at least paid you a 20% increase. I guess that's fine. I do really like and love that this fight's not on pay-per-view. Like, that's something that we were, I think, I don't know about we, but me especially, I was worried about paying for all these pay-per-views. Honestly, like there's like 20 of them from.
Yeah, it was going to be a bit much, especially if we do get Wilder Fury 3. It's like, it's too many. It's too many.
And you know me, I pay for the UFC pay-per-views too. So like it's so much money. I didn't want, even if it's a tax write-off, like I still have to pay out of pocket at first, right? So fuck that. No, I was really upset with the amount of pay-per-views we were having. So this is one more off that list. And it's arguably the biggest one with the potential for the most impact for the sport, in my opinion. Right? Like if Charlo Rosario or Charlo Derevchenko was on Fox, would that have more impact for the sport potentially than Loma Lopez on ESPN? I don't think so.
No, I mean, look, Charlo is the one they want to win the fight. If he wins, Chanko does not much for you. I mean, it's a good win. It's his best win, but it's not like now he's Canelo or even Triple G, right? He's internationally known now. He beat Derevchenko. If Derevchenko wins, that damages Charlo, right? Like that's ooh.
But I mean that. Just think about like if you're thinking of like from a godlike perspective of the sport, right? Like you're outside of it, right? And if you could just you can move things around and determine things, you would want Lopez to beat Loma on ESPN from a massive audience and have that transcendental moment, right? That moment will always be bigger than Charlo Rosario, Charlo Derevchenko, and if they won on Fox.
Right, there's no transcendental moment in that because there's no legendary Hall of Fame at this point, at least. They have plenty of years left. Hall of Fame fighter at this point, right? There's no changing of the guard. It's just if Derevchenko and Charlo, it's just one good fighter beating the other. That's really all it is at this point.
The closest would be probably Gervonta Davis and Leo Santa Cruz for like fights that could actually like move the needle for the sport in the way.
I'm pissed off and when Davis misses weight by 3 pounds.
And plus, Davis's out of the ring behavior, like,
Once they said they were putting their 30 and 35-pound belts on the line, I was like, okay, like he ain't gonna try to make 30. He may make 135.
It's not in the chat saying they should put on ABC. I mean,
hey, yeah, they should. Let's do it.
They should put Tyson Fury on ABC, Crawford, Loma, Lopez. Like you can name a lot of guys who they should put on ABC, and they just don't. And I'll be honest, I think that might be just pushing it to a degree. Like they can barely get a lot of marketing on ESPN, let alone ABC, right? Like there's clearly like the second or third fiddle, at least the second fiddle to the combat sports sort of programming for ESPN. And that second fiddle is a deep divide from the first one in terms of the UFC. The UFC gets all the marketing budget, it gets all of the commercials and ad revenue. It's clear that Top Rank and ESPN's relationship is really clinical in the sense. Like it's not one that they're locking arms and they're trying to, push and promote this sport as a whole. No, that's not that at all. It's a time slot they can fill up for a cheap event. That's kind of what it is. Boxing's a cheap event comparative to other sports. So there you go. Moving on though. Quickly, viewership prediction. How many views do you think this gets on ESPN?
2.5.
That still doesn't feel like enough. I'm gonna go with 3.5 million.
That's big. Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna go 3.5 million. I'll be honest. First off, it's lucky if this does end up on October 17th. This is not on a day with a lot of other combat sports in terms of like big combat sports. For example, the Charlo event has a massive UFC pay-per-view on the same day. It's like that's automatically in competition with each other. This one, it might just be in the free and clear in terms of competition.
Yeah.
And it's just big. Like I see a lot of people that aren't us, like hardcore boxing fans, talking about this fight, talking about watching this over other things. So hopefully it's bigger than I think what we view it as. This shouldn't be just a hardcore fight. Right? This should be a massive transcendental moment for the sport. If it's not, it's because the network and promotional company have dropped the ball.
I'm going to say 2.5. When we get closer and if they're really hyping this thing, if I feel there's a lot of buzz about it, I may go higher.
Speaking of the Charlo events, there we go. Charlo Derevchenko will be before Charlo Rosario in this weird of like setup. Okay, it's a 6-fight card. It starts at 7 p.m. Eastern. You have 3 fights. That's the main event of the main event of Charlie Derevchenko and a intermission. Then 3 more fights with the main event of Charlo Rosario, and this is all on one pay-per-view telecast. I mean, first off, a lot of bang for your buck, so that's cool. I can't really fault them for that. I mean, we've been clamoring for deep pay-per-view cards for a while. If we're going to pay for events, we want them to at least be worth the money and not just be a 1-fight card. And this is definitely not that. Plus, Daniel Roman, Payano is going to be on the card. Luis Neri versus Amada, Casamora is going to be on the card. So it has a decent undercard as well. I don't know how effective this is going to be. I don't know if I like this yet. But the whole intermission idea, instead of just having it where the Charlos are a co-main and main event, and there's just the top 2 fights, and you just have a 6-fight card, right? Like I don't see why you have to do this half card thing and intermission. Like I don't understand why you have to do that. You're trying it, I guess. So like, cool for creativity. You get a gold star, but like I don't know if that's what I would want. To be honest,
they're trying to make you feel like they're giving you 2 pay-per-view cards for the price of 1. They think they're trying to make you feel like they're giving you a double header, right? Because most people don't watch any more than the final 3 pay-per-view, the final 3 fights on the card anyway, right? I mean, most people aren't watching every single fight.
Gary. Taking a little smoke break and Gary shit breaks out. Come on. Gary.
I think it's more of a marketing ploy. Like you're getting a 2 for 1. I don't mind it, right? You watch your 3 fights, you get a little break, you have yourself a little dinner, and then you go back. And
I didn't see that as a marketing gimmick for like you get 2 events in one, and that's truly how it looks more than just it's all these undercard fights and then Charlo and Charlo as a co-main event, main event. I get that. I just don't know how it works. In terms of like if it works, if you get more buys because of that, like that marketing gimmick, is that actually going to get you 10,000 more pay-per-view buys? 20,000, 50,000? I don't know. It doesn't seem like it to me.
Well, it's going to do more pay-per-view buys than Canelo Mayweather. So,
did someone say that?
I said that because we were talking about how we don't think it's going to do well. And Food goes, "What if it does well, guys?" And I go, "What if it does better than Canelo Mayweather, guys?" Right? Like, it's not going to do well. And I love Charlo. Jamal is my favorite fighter. Look, they're both on the wall. It's not going to do well, right? Like, it's. I mean, what's well? I can't see it doing 200. So, I mean, I don't know.
Liam Roscoe is asking, could this appease both East and West Coast times? I don't think that's really an issue. I think like the 4 people that complain about like, East versus West Coast time slots, like I don't think really matters. Like I don't think that's an actual discussion.
This always, because you always get it from old people, right? You always get the World Series. The NBA finals are on too late. I can't watch it. It's like they should put it on earlier so more people can watch. Like, do you think they've not done the math? Do you think NBC and Fox and ABC haven't done the math on this? Like, where can we get the absolute most people to watch this? What time can we put this on? Oh, 8:24 Eastern time. Okay, we're gonna do that, right? Like, you don't think they've done this? Like, they know exactly what time they're putting on to get the absolute most amount of eyes on it that they can. Right? And it's always like, okay, Boomer. It's like there are people all over the country who want to watch this fight or this basketball game or baseball game or Super Bowl or whatever. Like they know what they're doing. They've crunched the numbers. They know what time to the minute that they can put this on that's going to get the absolute most amount of eyes on
it. That was so good, Gary. That was so good. Yeah, I mean, I like the afternoon cards, but if I have stuff to do, it's a pain in the ass on Saturday, honestly. Like, if there's like a full loaded Saturday of fights and I have shit to do in the midday, I want to go get lunch or whatever, I can't do that. I have to stay here and watch fights for 16 hours. That's not fun. I don't like that. Like, I like shorter events, shorter fights. I'm all in favor of that shit. You know me. Moving on, though, because
I don't like to get off my couch, so I'm all for longer events.
Oh, fuck that.
If I can sit in my recliner for 12 hours and not leave, Um, that's a good day. I don't like to do things and stuff.
I don't like to do one thing all day. I put it that way. Like I can't listen to like, let's say, like podcasts all day or music all day. I can't watch TV all day. I can't watch movies all day. I gotta fucking mix it up. Like that's just I have to. PSK saying you guys mentioned the 2 UK cards. Yes, we mentioned all the fight cards at the very beginning of the show. So if you want to catch that, just rewind the show when we talked about the Carl Frampton event and the Braekhus event. Oh, was there a Friday UK
card? Friday. It's now like there was so much boxing this week. We haven't touched on Friday's card.
I didn't see it, to be honest. I apologize. What was it? Who was fighting?
There's so much boxing. I was like half tuned out of the Benavidez fight because I was just boxing out. Oh boy, who was the main event? If someone reminds me, I'll remember the whole card.
Was it a BT or a Skype?
No, it was a fight. It was a matchroom card. It was the fight camp, Eddie's house. What? Who was the main event?
Eddie's Plantation. Gary, come on, stay on brand, okay?
Eddie's Plantation. Boy, hey, someone in the chat, tell us what the main event in that was. I'll remember everything because there was some decent fights on that card.
Yeah, I gotta go back and watch the main event of the Frampton card. I didn't watch Frampton fight. I watched every other fight on that card except for Frampton. And I gotta go back and watch the Romero fight and score it. I gotta go back and watch the Friday event. God, fuck, so much to do. Plus, guys, since I have you all here, reminder: General Strike podcast tonight, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, guys. So please join us. We've had 2 episodes so far. We've had 1 episode of a documentary series. It's really, really good stuff. Just to give you an example of like what the thumbnails have been for the other shows, so you get an idea of what the shows have been. First one was about James Baldwin, then Fred Hampton, history of the SPD. The documentary series that we're doing, me and Foogatti, it's gonna be a 15-part series. I kind of went ahead of schedule and released like the 6th episode first. So please go check that out. And also episode today, like I said, 7 p.m. Pacific time. Sorry, 7 p.m. Pacific time. Live on YouTube, live on Twitter, and of course, podcast distributors and feeds. General Strike Podcast, Trending Now Podcast. Find it there. Gary, back to you. Let's talk about Devin Haney. And he might be stealing the fight from your boy since 10
Real quick. Zelfa Barrett versus Eric Donovan was the co-main, and that was a great fight. If you hadn't watched that, go back and watch that. I won't tell you what happened. I won't play spoiler, but if you hadn't watched that card, go back and watch that.
It was the Felix Cash event, yes.
Okay. Yeah. And Felix Cash looked fine. I wasn't too impressed with of Jason Welburn. That guy's no good. But Cash looked
Hey, Welburn gave Hurd some issues, man.
Did he get knocked out a couple rounds?
Yeah, but he gave him issues until he got knocked out in the second round. Oh, God. Devin Haney, most likely fighting October 3rd against either Gamboa or Javier Fortuna. And you might be asking yourself, how can Fortuna happen? Is he supposed to fight Gary's favorite fighter of all time, Hector Tanahara? Well, ladies and gentlemen, Tanahara is ducking Fortuna and asking for an extension on when the fight can happen. So, Gary, why is your man ducking? Okay. And why is Haney going to take that Fortuna scalp before Tanahara does?
We'll fight Gamboa because, why wouldn't he fight Gamboa? And Fortuna will fight Tanahara. If they're pushing the fight back anyway, which they are, just have Tanahara fight Fortuna and have 2 cards or a main event and a co-main. Right? I mean, I don't see the problem with it unless you need to have Tanahara headline Golden Boy card because you don't have a whole lot right now.
Well, I think you're thinking from the wrong perspective here. Okay, if you're Fortuna, right, who is what Samson's boxing guy, I want to say, guessing here, he is the Tanahara fight's not done; it's not official yet. Tanahara wants, I think, 3 or 4 more weeks to train. If you're Fortuna, you are maybe fielding offers from Matchroom for Haney or Golden Boy for Tanahara. Which contract is more money? Gary.
Ask me that question again.
So if you're Fortuna, right, and you're not under the same promotional company, not under the same network umbrella as either Tanahara or Haney, and you're fielding offers from both respective parties.
I would assume the Haney one is more, but I don't know that because maybe there's only so much money in the pot and they have to give a bigger cut to Haney. But you would think traditional logic would tell you obviously the Haney pot is bigger. The Haney purse is bigger.
If there is room left to get out of the Tanahara fight and to take a Haney fight, which is for a belt, air quotes, and presumably more money, right? We would assume it is. We don't know for sure, but I think it's a safe assumption. How does Fortuna not take the Haney fight over Tanahara?
Okay, fine. Then Tanahara can fight Gamboa. That's fine. I'd rather him fight Fortuna, but let's say you're right. Then fight Gamboa, and you get that scalp. You get a world champion, a multi-division world champion.
But don't be so defensive about Tanahara's case. I know you're thinking from that perspective, but just from a pure logistical standpoint, does what I say make sense? Does what I say track logically that seems maybe more likely now than the Tanahara fight purely due to money and the Tanahara fight not being sort of official?
It does, right? It does.
Yeah.
I still, and this you might think this is crazy, I still think Gamboa's name has value to it. So I think Haney versus Gamboa is a bigger draw for the zone. So they would prefer that fight.
I 100% agree with you that Gamboa has more name value than Fortuna, just pure name value. I would probably agree with you that DAZN and Matchroom and or Haney would think Gamboa has more name value than Fortuna. Absolutely agree with that. I just hope to God Gamboa has some self-preservation within him to go, I'm not going to take a Haney fight off of a Achilles surgery. That would just be sad. You know what I mean? That would truly be cashing yourself out if you're Gamboa. And I don't want to see that.
Achilles injury is, if you're in the prime of your career, it's career changing, if not career ending, right? Dominique Wilkins was the one that came back, but he was super athlete in the prime of his career. It may not be career ending. At the end of your career, it's career ending. If you're 29 and you have it, you probably won't be the same. Mm-hmm. If you're 30, how old is Gamboa? 38, 39, and you have it, your career's over. That's it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. So I'm curious about how much Gamboa wants that fight from a pure health perspective. But I hope there's some self-preservation within him to go, that's not the right idea right now. I can take a soft tune-up, test my ankle out, and if it doesn't feel right, I don't get hurt again. I think that would hopefully be on his mind more than money at this point if I'm Gamboa. While Fortuna, he's never got the money like Gamboa got. Gamboa got money back in the day. Fortuna never had money, so he's always going to be that mercenary veteran to a degree, right? Moving on, though, unless you have any other thoughts about Devin Haney, what's next for him? Andy Ruiz and Chris Arreola agree to a PBC fight. I think when is it again? Late 2020. I know this fight was talked about for some time before COVID hit, so it's not a surprise. It's happening now to a degree, whenever it does happen. And I do think it's a good fight. I think it's a completely logical tune-up fight coming off a huge loss, like he did against Anthony Joshua in the rematch. It's a regionally speaking interesting fight from a guy that's lived in LA his whole life. Not his whole life. I lived in Oregon for a few years. But most of my life I live in LA. These are two guys that are the LA heavyweights to a degree. Right? Chris Arreola was the LA heavyweight of the early or the mid 2000s and the 2010s, and Andy Ruiz is kind of that guy now. So I would love to see this fight. To me, it would be a fun heavyweight slugfest between two guys that are not the best shaped men, and that to me can be funny. Gary, your thoughts?
Yeah, it's fun. It's a good tune-up fight, right? Arreola is a pro. He won't be an easy out, but Ruiz will certainly get past him, right? To do so in what's a fun fight, but ultimately a one-sided fight. And if it's not, then maybe we need to tap the brakes a little bit. But it's a good fight for Ruiz to have back in the ring after it'll be almost a year off, and his first fight in his new camp. So,
no, I agree completely. Are we? I forget in the article if it said if this is Fox or Showtime. Are we assuming this is going to be on Fox because that's what it originally was talked about as? Right, because it was originally talked about as a Fox main event, right? In like August, I want to say was when it was originally talked about.
Yeah, I would assume it's on Fox.
Does good viewership, heavyweights.
It does.
Yeah.
I think it does surprisingly well because of the two fighters involved. Like the two of them together, I think you have a nice little event. And Areola can still trash talk and he can sell a fight.
Are you curious about Andy Ruiz with Eddie Renato? This is the first fight with him.
Yeah, I think it'll be a decent gauge to see. I think Ruiz is super skilled, so I think this is a good fit for him. It's just, is he going to be motivated, or is he Buster Douglas now? Is it just like, I'm rich?
I hope not. 92 Aku in the chat saying you're forgetting about USC's El Gallo. I'm not gonna say the last word because I'm just too white. Yeah, I think Jared Washington should be mentioned for LA heavyweights, but I mean, same like Dominic Brazil. Like they're guys that train here for sure, but they don't got the hype that Barriola did for sure back in the day, or Ruiz has now. Not even close to the hype. And what else? Do we have anything else to talk about, Gary? Any other lingering topics to address?
The Virgil Ortiz mural that went up in his hometown of Grand Prairie, Texas. If anyone's in the Grand Prairie area, Short Hill Road, right over by Grand Prairie High School, home of the Gophers, go see the Virgil Ortiz mural. They said that mural will last 20 to 25 years. So then we put up another one where it goes in the Hall of Fame. Oh, and him and his dad said they want either Danny Garcia or Keith Thurman next. I said, well, Danny's got another fight lined up. So Keith Thurman it is. And that's why Matt wore his one-time shirt today.
That
he also wants to get a little revenge for his buddy Josecito.
Yo, Thurman dog walks Ortiz right now.
No, he doesn't. No one dog walks Virgil Ortiz.
No one dog walks him, but I do think Thurman beats him.
Okay, that's completely reasonable to think that, right? Obviously, he has a better resume. He almost beat Pacquiao, so it's completely reasonable, but Virgil Ortiz stops him.
I'm curious.
I understand why you think that.
I'm curious to see what happens. And I do think if they were to fight, Thurman's the guy that's going to be on the back foot. Right? I see that, and Ortiz being the aggressor, being the guy to come forward, right? I wonder how much it looks like a Danny Garcia fight. Thurman versus Garcia, where like Thurman is not throwing enough on the back foot, but he's clearly winning the rounds. Ortiz is not really in a position to throw effectively, so he's missing a lot of shots. He's not really throwing enough shots, too, because he's not in position to throw shots. I kind of see the fight turning out like that. Because I do think Ortiz and Danny Garcia are comparable opponents.
They kind of are. Like, they kind of built the same. They kind of fight the same. Like, they do a lot of things similarly. Virgil's a little bit more aggressive, and Danny's a little bit better of a counterpuncher. But, like,
hold on, PSK reminded me that I want to address the discussion in the chat. I saw a lot of people discussing the idea of unifications with promotions and like which promoter does unifications more in terms of in-house or unifications with other promotional companies. I will say this. I think you're all having the wrong discussion here. I think when we talk about the lack of unifications, unifications between promotional companies, it's not that person or that promotional company is at fault. They're the issue. They're the monkey wrench into the system. No, the system is designed to not let these fights happen. It's designed to allow promoters outs when it comes to unifications, when it comes to mandatories. The system is inherently designed that way. So instead of saying PBC doesn't do unifications enough, or Top Rank doesn't do them enough, or Matchroom doesn't do them enough, which is true across the board that they don't do unifications enough, it's not a promotional or singular promotional issue. It's a systemic issue along the lines of like most things in society that have like real big issues from like an industry perspective or a societal perspective. They're systemic issues. They're not one-off cases. There's a reason why we don't get unifications more often, because they're not codified into commission rules, to sanctioning body rules in a way that actually makes these fights happen. Until we get the cleaning up of sanctioning bodies and the inherent system, because the sanctioning bodies do make the system more than anything, along with the commissions. Until that system is cleaned up, these promotional companies are not pushed to make the unifications that we want. And that should be the discussion we have. Not, you're a PBC hater, you're a PBC fan, or you're a Matchroom fan, or you're a Matchroom hater. I think that is so off topic in terms of how we should talk about this issue. We should be yelling at the WBC, the WBA, the IBF, the WBO, every single commission and regulatory body we can think of. We should be yelling at them because they create the system. The promotional companies are just private corporations working within the system. So that's how I would address it. I just wanted to quickly address that discussion in the chat. I saw Johnny and PSK and all of you guys talking about this, and I felt like you guys were just missing the point. You guys are talking past each other in a lot of ways. I think most of us, especially you guys that watch this show, we're of like mind in a lot of ways. Like, we have cleaned up a lot of the trolls that we used to see a lot of, right? Like, it's a lot of people that think like-mindedly in terms of how the sport should be, how the sport should move, and we shouldn't be bogged down in issues of suppression of the ills of the boxing industry instead of just suppression of the boxing system. We have to suppress the boxing system because the boxing system is inherently designed to not be for consumers, not be for fighters. So until that system is suppressed and dissolved and created and reformed entirely, then this is just an issue we're going to be talking past each other in a lot of ways. But anyways, I just wanted to address that. I saw a lot of people talking about it in the chat. It goes in line with a lot of my talking points on the General Strike podcast, so I just wanted to address it as well. Sorry about that. Gary, we're back onto final thoughts and all that stuff.
One other thing. Keith Thurman calling out Terrence Crawford. Do you think Terrence Crawford not taking that is out of spite? Or do you think, what is that, right? Because that's a good fight for Crawford, and it's a bigger money fight than
when did Thurman call out Crawford? Because every time we've played Thurman clips, he always says, we don't need him.
No, this was like yesterday, maybe? 2 days ago? This. Okay, I'll send it to you.
I did see, though, Gary Russell Jr. And he talked about Crawford. And negotiations are happening, man.
But from what I understand was that Crawford said that without a belt, he doesn't need Thurman, right? Which, okay, fine. But he got on Spence when Spence told him to go get a belt, right? Thurman's a great fight. It's a better fight than you're going to make next. So
it's the best fight Crawford's ever had.
Yeah.
If you were to fight
a mile. I mean, do you think it's just spite because Keith Thurman shot him down and okay?
Yeah.
Crawford isn't there.
If I have to guess, I think most people are petty. I'm petty. So when it comes to business, and if I got screwed over and I get a chance to screw you over in business, oh my fucking God, Gary, I'm taking that chance. I am. I'm just a petty person. Crawford's that way. I can say that 1,000%.
Okay, I mean,
you're right though, Gary. I mean, that fight is amazing, and it sucks that he's doing that. But then again, Thurman was months ago. Remember when it was when Thurman was 192 pounds. He was out there saying, "We don't need Crawford. We can fight all of us. We don't. He's the one on the outside. He needs to come to us." So I don't know. It's the Spider-Man meme of him pointing to himself, right? It's who's at fault for these big fights not happening, and Spider-Man pointing at Spider-Man. It's the same issue.
I think Thurman is looking at himself. I think he's 31 or 32 now. Mm-hmm. I think his clock is ticking. He wants to be remembered as one of the all-time great welterweights. Well, you're gonna have to beat an all-time great welterweight. He came up just short against Pacquiao. Spence is fighting elsewhere. Okay, I want to fight Crawford now. Now I want to make this fight. Now I care about my legacy. I want to beat Crawford at this point.
PSK is adding, wouldn't Kell Brook also be the best fight Crawford's ever had? Probably.
Yeah. I mean,
it's that or Jeff Horn.
Gamboa is a better fight, but name value. I mean, yeah.
I mean, it would be Postal, right? I feel like it would be Postal.
Yeah, that's true. But no one cares about Postal except for me. No one thinks Postal, Oh, that's not true. Boxing fans, hardcore thinks he's good, but I mean, When that thing was announced, I'm like, well, I ain't gonna do well, and then it did worse than I thought.
So bad. Reminder, guys, ladies and gentlemen, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, live on YouTube and Twitter. The General Strike podcast, episode 3, going in, diving into the whole General Strike calls that are happening right now. I know name is timely at this point, but there have been a lot of calls for, I think September 1st is the first day that everyone's calling for a general strike. So we're going to be talking about that. Trump's war on the Postal Service and Social Security. I'm going to talk a little bit about Karl Marx versus Mikhail Bakunin. Going to sort of dive into what the first few episodes of the documentary is going to be about, since we're going back in time for the documentary. First episode that we released was set in from 1875 to 1919. This one's going all the way back to like 600 BC. So like it's going to be interesting to see the reception to that one. But anyways, guys, I'm Matt, the Hipster Hunter. Find me, Matt Hunter, MCR, all social media platforms. Hit the like button, share the show, all that fun stuff. Please support the channel and support our new show as well. And if you're not a politics person, go hit the like button. Like, it doesn't hurt you at all. And Gary, final thoughts.
Find me on all forms of social media at 3D Boxing, 3D Boxing blog, from Texas to the world. Thank you, and God bless.
Have a great day. Peace, everyone.